coming down the corridor.
See him. My plan at all, half an hour later to start, to get people in on time, and then cancel the kettle.
And that's on time. At 10 o'clock. Oh, did
Never
it?
happens. Never happens. It's not happened, Good morning, everybody. Thank you for attending, and we are quorate. So my plan of moving the start by half an hour to get the quorate meeting, thank goodness, has worked. So apologies to those though who have been sat here for some considerable time. You will know that today's meeting is our final one of the year. So we'll talk about that a little bit more shortly. So if we move straight to apologies for absence, Jana, you're delivering those.
Apologies have been received from councillors Ian Mackey and Vera Watkins.
Thank you. And if we just place on record for Councillor Waters, wishing her a speedy recovery. I think she's had a number of health issues over the last few months which have prevented her attending. And I know Vina's very passionate about scrutiny. So if we can just wish her a speedy recovery from the committee, please. Do we have any declarations of interest as per the agenda?
Can it just be noted that I chair Active Black Country, and just with regard to the item on Commonwealth Games, there's not a direct conflict of interest, but just to know for the minutes.
Thank you for that. So Chair's remarks, as I've said, it is the last meeting of the municipal year, and I do want to thank everybody for your attendance, for your input, and in what could have been quite a challenging and quite a difficult 12 months, really, given the political stakes. So I do want to thank everybody for the way that you've contributed and the positive outcomes that we have continued to see as a scrutiny committee. I also just wanted to comment that at the last board meeting, it was really refreshing to see that actually I think it's the first time it's worked in sync, whereby the papers that had come to us then went to board with a list of recommendations attached to them that had been made by the scrutiny committee, and that was really good practice, and hopefully we'll see that will continue going forward. So that was really refreshing to see. And finally, just a thank you to Lindsay and Jana for all their work on behalf of the committee, Dan for his ongoing support, and all of the combined authority officers who have attended the meeting, either to present reports or just in regular attendance. Thank you for all of your input as well. So we'll move on to the minutes of January the 29th, and as usual, we'll take them first for accuracy. So if we take page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Are we content that those are accurate records of the meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah, so those minutes are formally accepted. Thank you. And then we'll go back for matters arising. So I should have said actually that Laura Shoaf has had to send her apologies. She's had some big issues that she's had to go away and resolve. So she would normally attend this meeting, but apologies from Laura. And the first matter arising that I've got on 172, item B, was actually an update from Laura on that action. Do we know anything?
Yes, Chair. So I can confirm that the Air Quality Framework and Implementation Plan had been shared with local authority lead officers prior to its approval at WMCA board in November.
Okay, thank you. Item C I think it might just be worth Lindsay doing a very brief update on the member engagement review that Transport are conducting. I've been sitting on that review group, but it kind of fits quite nicely into that particular agenda item around any full additional training that members might have highlighted.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so the Transport Scrutiny Committee have been undertaking a review looking at the effectiveness of the WMCA's member engagement and development. So with those members appointed onto our committees and boards. As it was recognised that the subject area was wider than transport, the chair of this committee, Councillor Cathy Baton, was also invited to join that scrutiny review. So the review panel have had their meetings with their key participants over the last couple of weeks and will be formalising their key findings from that review. It's envisaged that their final report will be going to Transport Scrutiny Committee on the 18th of March, and I'm happy to share that report with this committee when it's published.
Thanks, Lindsay. And I'm sure that there will be some additional recommendations within that report around external training for members. Any matters arising on page 3? Page 4. Just to comment on page 4, 175, number 3. The figures were included in the papers that went to board. So they are now in the public domain if anybody wanted to have a look at them. Page 5, Andrew.
Thank you, Chair. Members will probably recall me banging on about level 2 training in construction and building. Claire Hatton, who's the interim director of skills and education, skills and training for the authority, took me to a training centre which was just outside Dickens Heath, but I think might actually be in Worcestershire, which takes unemployed people 60 at a time, 6 weeks training. At the end of that, they get a number of bits of paper, licenses for working on construction sites, doing such things as driving rollers, dumper trucks, steel fixing, and they go from unemployed, 60% of them go from unemployed to earning 120 quid a day. It looks like a fairly effective thing. I was also told whilst I was there that they run a weekend digger driving course, and that is to upskill people. And that's on a different site, and they also train people in the really big 60-ton articulated dumper trucks. The Combined Authority is also looking at introducing a catering training facility, again to do level 2 skills, again in Solihull. Now, this did bring to mind, people might hear I keep talking about Solihull, we might want to think about what else is going on elsewhere, because this was all brand new to me, that we were doing that much level 2 training. Now, they did show a map of where the people came from for the construction training, and you couldn't see Birmingham for the dots on the map, which struck me as really good. And there was even a dot out in my ward in Meriden. But I think it might be something we want to think about. It looks like it was very effective, and I didn't know anything about it, and I suspect most members don't either. So it's just worthwhile us noting. Thank you.
Thanks for that update. And looking at the work programme for next year, the next municipal year, we have skills on July's meeting, so it might be worth whoever is chair working with Lindsay to craft something around a specific update around the wider region of what is available there. Thank you. Councillor Kedler.
2 questions, if I may. One is, how do they qualify for this course?
I think that's probably a question for July, but basically they come off the unemployment rolls.
After 6 months, after 12 months, after 3 months?
I do not know, and those are questions I think we ought to ask, which is why I brought it to the board's attention, because to me it struck me that there's a whole series of questions that might actually come out of that, but it did look like a good initiative and maybe something we need to follow up.
If I may follow on, another aspect of what you've been to see and witness, and is that maybe it would be best to go in towards the end of one of these courses so that you witness and judge the quality of uplift that the course has created, you know.
All I can say is I saw guys driving dumper trucks and rollers. I mean, they could do it. And they were doing steel fixing as well.
So I think we'll absolutely pick up those points in July session, and Lindsay will make sure that Claire has a focus on that level of information. Page 6, matters arising, and page 7. Just to say on page 7, 178, number 2, the working group is set for the 13th of the 3rd. Nothing from anybody else.
No.
Right, that's lovely, thank you. So we then come to Councillor Akhtar, who is going to update on the brownfield land remediation scrutiny review.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, everyone. Colleague will remember that at September meeting of our Scrutiny Committee, we have considered a number of affordable housing related reports. Following the consideration of these reports, the committee agreed to set up a task and finish group to look into the brownfield remediation fund. The member of the group are myself, I chair the group, and Councillor Baton, Councillor Burrow, and Amanda Thompson. Before I go through to this brief note, I would like to thank the member of the review group and officer Robert and Rob for their support during the evidence gathering. So we met, I think, 2-3 times in February to actually first the scope of the review, and then we invited 3 independent experts to actually understand how actually brownfield remediation fund works, and if there is anything we, the member of the committee, can do to make it more better. Professor Chaminda Hartshade, Director of National Brownfield Institute, Andrew Scott, Central Manager of the National Brownfield Institute, and Stuart Penn, Regional Managing Director of Lowell Homes. During the discussion, there have been some theme emerged, which this review group will discuss with the officers. Because of the time scale, we cannot produce the report at this stage, but we will be bringing a detailed report with the recommendation to this committee in first meeting of the new municipal year. The number of themes which emerged was, one was that there should be a enhanced brownfield land registered for the region. So everybody knows what the brownfield land is, what is on there, and what sort of contamination or what the problem is there. And there was another integration of biodiversity in new development. And the third one was the communication and also planning issue as well. So we will look into this and we'll bring a final report back to this committee. If the member of the review would like to add anything, please do so.
Anybody want to add anything to Councillor Akhtar's overview? Yeah, I mean, we've decided that actually in order to do the report justice, because it was a very tight time frame to have prepared it, have the fact checking, have it all written, go through today's meeting, go through board in a couple of weeks, but actually it would have been a very rushed piece of work. So to do it justice and to have some really quality recommendations, we felt it would be better to take that time and get it in for the first meeting of the next municipal year. And I am confident that there will be some quality recommendations that will come from the working group. Okay, so we move on then to our substantive item on the agenda, which is the Commonwealth Games Legacy Enhancement Fund update. And welcome this morning to Cat Orchard and to Ed Cox, who are going to present the papers. And then we can, as you always will, come back to them with some questions. So over to yourselves.
Great, thank you for inviting us to come and talk about the Commonwealth Games Legacy Enhancement Fund. I remember that we have presented here before on this topic, but the great news is that now the funding is starting to flow, and many of the programmes, as you can see in the report, have started to act, and so there's all kinds of activities that are going on. We're very happy to answer questions on the report, but before we do that, if it's okay with you, Councillor Bayton, Kat has got a short presentation to take us through this morning, which will give us a flavour of some of the activities that are being funded through the fund.
Yeah.
So, Kat, over to you.
Yeah, I'm Cat Orchard. I am the Commonwealth Games Legacy Enhancement Fund here at the West Midlands Combined Authority. So my role is to oversee the entirety of the programme and also look after our relationship with government and Middle East. So that's who I am. You'll have had sight of the paper, which I think goes through each area of the programme in sort of as much detail as we have. It's a big area of work, so I did try to keep it quite high level and manageable for everybody. I do know it's been, I think, a year since Commonwealth Games has been to me, so there was quite a lot to say. And the chair asked me to prepare a presentation that just sort of pulled the achievements out and made that a little bit more easier for people to get to grips with, rather than a paper of very dense text. So what I'm going to do is go through kind of each area of the programme where we've got sort of a significant achievement to report. I have tried to order them in the same order as the table in Appendix 1 as best I can, so it should flow if you're looking from one to the other. So the first thing I said is plug in. There we go. Right. Okay. So the first programme to speak about is the Inclusive Communities pillar. Actually, before I get into this, I should also just quickly remind everyone that although this kind of programme, we started discussing this at the Combined Authority, I think sort of, you can't hear me, can you? It's over.
You're speaking to them.
Okay, sorry, is that better? Yeah, okay, sorry. We first started kind of discussing this programme at the Combined Authority, sort of the end of 22, start of 23. So these programmes were sort of designed and delivered from the very start of the 23-24 financial year. We didn't get confirmation from the government that the funding was actually with us to enable our programmes to move to mobilisation till the summer. So programmes just went through the SAF process between June and October 2022, started to hit procurement levels and mobilise sort of towards the end of the summer, start of the autumn 2023. So that's just to give you kind of an idea of the time frame that we're working with and where we are now. So we're not really reporting on a complete years of programme activity, because we did start and bang on the start of the financial year. So the first programme, the Inclusive Communities pillar, this is £10.5 million worth of funding available across constituent and non-constituent local authority areas. As you said, there are 4 individual funding streams, and it's a completely open access grant. The fund ended up having to close earlier than we thought it would do, thanks to an incredible response. We received over 1,400 applications from across the West Midlands, with a total application value of £72 million for a £9 million fund, which presents us with a nice problem to have, in that we've obviously succeeded in engaging communities, but obviously we don't have enough money to go around. So community panels are being held by our grant administrator, the Hospital Community Foundation, at the present moment in time. So medium grants, large grants and small works grants are decided by a community panel, and small grants are awarded on a rolling basis under delegation to come to the grant administrator. Example projects, so you get an idea of where this funding is going. I don't have a lot of example projects at the moment because we've just started the major award process. But for small projects, you're looking at things like supporting a local camera club to replace equipment. That's the Ruthven and Armitage Camera Club in Cannock Chase. They had about £1,000 to support local people to come in, participate in photography activities, get out and about at the chase. Medium-sized programmes. We've extended the opening hours volunteer training and outreach offer to Wellbeing Cafe in Telford and Brecon, which will obviously have a great deal of outreach into the local community. Large projects supporting a youth foundation to deliver accessible, free to access physical activity and wellbeing programmes for young people across the school holidays in Coventry. Now, in terms of kind of geographical splits, these are just 3 examples that I picked. They've recently been decided, so I'm not kind of giving out names at present. But in terms of how the geography is managed, we have had, as you can imagine, a tremendous response, particularly in and around Birmingham. You would expect that it's the largest area. And then, of course, there are a lot of issues going on with the City Council at the moment and the BCS sector. So to ensure an equitable spread of resource, what the programme did do was to split the funding and kind of benchmark and weight different local authority areas according to their constituent and non-constituent status, the IMD rating of the local authority and the population size. So whilst we haven't done this as sort of an allocation per local authority geography, if that makes sense, we do have a way of looking at where we're rewarding money and the level of spend that we would expect to see within a local authority area according to that equitable split. So that's how kind of the geographical decisions are being managed. In terms of the massive gap in need versus what we've got, we are also currently, hopefully, likely to secure an additional £3 million of funding from DLUC. That's just going through a business case process at the moment, so we're hoping to hear about that at the end of the week. I appreciate that will look like a bit of a drop in the ocean against a £72 million ask, but every little helps, and that will go sort of straight out into the fund and will be allocated amongst projects as they go through the process when they've been agreed. The next part of the Inclusive Communities pillar is the Social Economy and Growth Programme. So it's about £2 million. Yes. There are 9 clusters across the Social Economy and Growth Programme, 3 of which are in Birmingham, and then 1 each in Coventry, Douglas, Amberwell, Solihull, Walsall and Wolverhampton. To date, the clusters have been mapping across the areas to identify social economy organisations, and many have come back and fed back that they've discovered a far greater thriving social economy than they thought was previously there. So that is good. The clusters are coming together to, and 2 network events have taken place so far. They meet quarterly to share knowledge and best practice, share how they're getting on. That appears to be working really well. So the project has been delivered by Charles Raption as part of the WMTA broader social economy approach. He's really pleased with how the clusters have come together, have started to identify organisations that they can network with and support in their local area. In terms of the business support programmes, they've launched across the West Midlands area. There are 4 levels of support dependent on business turnover. There have been high levels of interest from business. Recruitment is underway and programmes will start to deliver from April onwards. So I don't have kind of the statistics to report back to you at present, but that will go live. And Charles's other kind of point of success in the area has been that where both providers hadn't really worked together before in terms of their delivery programme, they're already built quite a close relationship and are discussing how they can continue to work together and support small social enterprise businesses outside of the programme. So that also feels like a real first in terms of developing kind of a coherent and holistic approach to supporting social enterprise. Next piece would be the economy pillar. So we'll be looking at kind of major events. So key kind of outputs for this particular area of work over this past year has been the funding for Sport Record, that will take place next month at the ICP. So that is the World Sport and Business Conference and is the first since the pandemic. So in the world of major events, sports and business, this is quite a big deal. It's essentially 4 days of events, networking for over 120 federations. The International Olympic Committee hosts cities and sports business leaders. So the whole point about this is, as well as gathering together all of those really influential people in the sport and major events and sport business sectors into one place, it's also a really good opportunity for us to showcase the West Midlands, what the West Midlands has to offer in terms of major events, which was agreed as a key output from the Commonwealth Games Legacy Enhancement Fund. In addition to this, the Major Events Fund, the MEF, has supported 9 events across the West Midlands following a competitive process. So local authority partners were invited to bid into a process run by the West Midlands Growth Company over the summer. 9 events have been selected, which will be delivered during 24-25. And this programme of events opens with the ESL 1 esports tournament in Solihull in April in 2024 and closes with the World Kabaddi Championships in Wolverhampton in March 2025. It is a mix of sporting and cultural events. So the paper, I think, lists the full programmes that we have funded. Over me.
It's on page 15.
Page 15. Yeah, so we've also funded the European Judo Union Junior Cup in Warsaw, Black Country Festival in Dudley, the Good Eye Festival in Coventry, the Reggae Fever Celebration of Caribbean Culture in Coventry, the Weekend of Festival at Birmingham, Superdome Esports Tournament in Solihull in September, and Urban Sports in Wolverhampton. So it is a complete mix. And the other thing that we have, I think, achieved this year is following a number of issues in kind of determining the future of the European Athletics Championships following Birmingham's Section 114 enactment in autumn last year. We have been working quite hard with the CMS and with the Birmingham City Council and with the European Athletics Championships to continue to secure the event for the region. So that has been achieved, and we are just kind of now dealing with the final legal processes to make sure that will take place in 2026. The second, well, the largest fund for the economy pillar again is Global West Midlands, which is delivered through the West Midlands Growth Company. So it's a blend of Commonwealth Games funding. So £14.1 million of the left went towards this, in addition to the UK Shared Prosperity funding and of course the WMCA core budget. So the Growth Company are delivering, using a mix of funding streams to deliver against kind of 2 key ambitions, one of which was maximising the conversion of the business and tourism programme that was quite successful after the 2022 Commonwealth Games. So that pipeline of events and investment leads that were identified there, and also continuing to promote and carry out international promotion in key markets that were identified in the West Midlands international strategy. So they're doing this through the achievement of kind of 4 key objectives that relate to profile and reputation, jobs for local people with a target of 117 inward investment projects by March 2025, regeneration of the built environment with a target of 3 capital investment projects by 31st March 2025, and to lever in 12 sporting events and 11 business conferences by 31st March 2025. So in terms of what's been achieved, you can see the latest report we have had from them. So this is Q3 data, obviously Q4 data not available till the end of March, but Q3 data will show you what's been achieved against kind of the left KPIs, which were against sporting events landed, business conferences landed, opportunities won and projects landed, and jobs created or safeguarded. And then example of activities that they have carried out during this year is obviously continuing to support local authority partners to land major events, managing the major events fund process as we discussed earlier, securing business conferences. So they secured the Intelligent Transport System 27 World Congress, Growing Net Zero Conference 2024, and Institute of Export and International Trade Conferences in 2023 and 2025. A visitor pass has been created, will be created for the region, which they're aiming to have operational by spring 2024, which will be launched in conjunction with the UK's largest treasure hunt campaign. And then they also delivered a partnership with Visit Britain for sales mission to New Delhi in November with visitor economy businesses. I mean, there's a whole host of outputs and outcomes that are kind of linked to this fund, but this was just to give you a kind of a flavour of where that investment is going. The final part of the economy pillar is jobs, skills and wellbeing. So the 7 constituent local authorities have been allocated £800,000 each to deliver temporary skills and wellbeing support across communities. So this is combined and linked to kind of the UK SBF funding that's already sort of received through by local authority partners. And the idea is that basically this funding enables people to create a more holistic offer by focusing on employment support, which is something that isn't as well funded regionally and has become less easy to fund following the departure of the UK from the European Union. So each local authority has a tailored combination of targeted job supports, regional careers programme, jobs and skills hubs, paid work placement models and mentoring, and they've decided what is going to work best in their local area. It's been a discussion that's been very much designed by those local authorities who are delivering these programmes. The focus for 23-24 has been to design and build the programmes, as you would expect. As at the end of Q3, all of the local authorities are kind of moving into delivery. Some key sort of examples of the kind of things that are underway is Walsall Works campaigns programme was launched for the New Year, New Career event in Walsall. Apologies to anybody from Walsall for the misspelling of that first situation of Walsall on the slide. The I Can Dudley campaign, which supports people local people furthest from the job market into employment and addressing wellbeing issues. The programme's launched in Solihull and they delivered their extended apprenticeship show in November 23, and there's been outreach across Sandwell with the New Year New Start event and an apprenticeship event in 2024. And there will be activity in other local authority areas too. It's just that some are slightly further ahead than others in terms of jobs and skills programme. The Trailblazers programme. So this supports the United by 2022 charity. So they got £5 million worth of funding to deliver 5 programmes of events, which are continuation projects from the Commonwealth Games Legacy Enhancement Fund. The first one of this is Critical Mass, which is an inclusive dance project for young people with and without disabilities. So they performed at the opening ceremony of the Commonwealth Games, and they were funded to continue for another year. So they performed again at Birmingham Festival 2023 in new work, and there are, at the moment, we are seeking a performance opportunity for them in the 24-25 financial year. Bring the Power, which is the schools engagement, youth engagement programme, has delivered 60 school workshops, reaching 1,772 young people so far. There's young people aged between 8 and 14. 14 organisations have been on board to deliver Gen 22, which is a social action project, and providers that have been engaged for Gen 22 are predicting they'll be able to work with 700 young people across the 7 constituent local authority areas, ahead of their original target of 300. So that's quite an achievement. Actually, that's far more than we were expecting. They've expanded the United by 2022 Family Network, which is basically it's completely free to join. It's for sort of all charities and organisations within the West Midlands area who are delivering projects that align with Games Legacy outcomes, Games Legacy outputs, and the United by 2022 charity support with capacity building, identifying funding opportunities, and they delivered a skilled volunteers programme last year, which matched volunteers from the corporate world with a charity in need of support. So, charities who need legal advice, for instance, being able to access orders from the corporate world. And they've also launched the Volunteers Collective, so that built on the Birmingham 2022 volunteering activity, and have supported 18 large and small events across the West Midlands as at Q3, with over 10,000 volunteer hours provided so far. And I know that they are already linking into events that are planned. So certainly those events that we funded through the Major Events Fund for 24-25 will be receiving a kind of an offer of volunteer help support from the Volunteers Collective where that's required. The culture pillar. So the key kind of achievements here is the launch of the Theatre Technician Bootcamp. So this allows young people who want to work in theatre to access training for free. Participating theatres include the Royal Shakespeare Company, the Hippodrome, New Hampton Arts Centre, the Halls Wolverhampton, the Grand Wolverhampton, the Arena Theatre Wolverhampton University, the Birmingham Midlands Arts Centre, Digital Garage and Warwick Arts Centre. So this launched a couple of weeks ago. I think the Mayor went along and launched the Wolverhampton Grand. It's kind of key because it's a real skills gap at the moment, and there aren't a lot of boot camps that focus on this quite specific area. So it's a really, really good way for young people who want to work in the theatre to receive some training and experience. And those theatres have already indicated that they are very much interested in continuing to work with people who've been through the theatre boot camp experience kind of post their qualification, if that makes sense. So it does look like that there will be some further opportunities for work after completion. There are double devolved grants for the culture programme. So each local authority, constituent local authorities, getting circa £307,000 to deliver kind of cultural and placemaking activity across 24-25. So these will be awarded by the end of the financial year, and local authorities will be working with the culture team here to design the high level plans that they will be delivering against. The Creative Health Task and Finish Group is live. So this is the link between kind of culture and social prescribing and general health and wellbeing. So the team have pulled together sort of subject matter experts, relevant organisations across the West Midlands Combined Authority area, and they're currently developing kind of a theory of change for the work programme that will take place in 24-25. International grants, which has been matched with British Council funding, will launch on the 18th of March. So this provides support to cultural organisations and individuals in the sector in developing international arts and culture collaborations. So it's all about expanding the West Midlands kind of cultural impact and cultural footprint. And then the Creative Futures campaign, which is due to launch in March, supports development opportunities for young people in arts and culture, and is also match funded via a fundraising drive delivered in partnership with Big Gig, which is quite an innovative approach to providing additional funding to arts and culture. And then finally, the Community Environment Fund, so £1.2 million worth of funding, was launched in October 2023. And as at February 24, the Environment Fund have made awards to 8 projects across the West Midlands. And the one that launched sort of in the press last week was the Reuse Hub in Wolverhampton. So that's a regional first and enables local people to buy surplus bricks, tiles, flooring and other building supplies. So saving them money, but also reducing waste going to landfill. Other projects that have not yet been formally announced, so I received this update at the back end of last week. So again, I can't sort of particularly name names, but we're supporting the development of a nature, environment and climate change education centre at Community Garden. We're supporting a project supporting repair, share and remaking of clothing. So again, reducing waste going to landfill, but also kind of upskilling and providing social outreach. And a mapping project to support endangered species in the region's waterways. So the fund is not yet fully allocated, and the next panel takes place on the 18th of March, and they will continue to make awards into the new financial year. But yes, that's a brief and very, very speedy canter through sort of a year's worth of work, which I appreciate doesn't potentially go into the depths that some of you may wish to mine, but we're here to take questions, and if there's anything that I can't answer for you today, I will come back to you after the meeting.
Thanks for the presentation, Kat and Ed. Obviously, there's a change to the slides that you had sent out to us versus there's the additional one that you put in this morning. If that can be shared, please, so that members have got that. So I open it up for questions. Councillor Bateman.
Oh, it's clear there's a great deal of work gone into that on a very broad scale. And I think the demand issue is the one that it's highlighted for me, because whilst it's there, all those organisations, that £72 million worth of value that you were talking about. Well, I was looking at the other side of that. Without success, where will we be in relation to the survival of those people that have put the bid in the first instance? So the pressure's obviously going to go on. I think you've done a really good job in trying to equalise out, and certainly in drawing attention to the requirements, the need requirements of the West Midlands. It's always going to grow. It's always going, especially the areas around sport and culture in Ireland, I thought. And health and economic, the economy, there's always going to be a demand there. But, you know, I think you've done a really good job. It'd be good to have that extra slide for us. That'll help it a little bit in sorting through. It was an unenviable job, I suspect.
So any comment that you wish to make in response?
I was just going to say thank you. In terms of the this sort of the gap in funding and the 72 versus the money that we've actually got. We are making sure that those organisations that don't receive funding get usable feedback, so that they know kind of where they went wrong. And in some cases, it won't be that they went wrong at all. It will just be that there isn't enough money and their bid just wasn't quite as good as someone else's. But we will try and make sure that, you know, they're able to at least use the experience to go forward. The other thing that we've done is the community panel amongst the membership. There are membership from other funding bodies, so it has been possible for us to signpost bids that you haven't quite made the cut for inclusive communities, make other funders aware, and then we can say, right, okay, we think you would be a really good fit for this element of the National Lottery Community Fund. So it may be that we are able to pick up some of the demand that way. And we also know that because of the focus on this fund and the amount of community engagement did go and was delivered off the back of it to generate interest, groups have prioritised applying here over applying elsewhere. So it may also be that we're just seeing a complete spike in demand because we're the most vocal and most loud. And actually, it's not as if the other areas of funding, other funding resources across the West Midlands are completely sort of already allocated and overspent. So I'm hopeful that we can make some links and join those groups up with funding that they so desperately need.
Councillor Tennant.
Thank you for this. I've just got a few questions. The first is a technical one. On the jobs and skills bit, it says Birmingham's contract is subject to cabinet approval in February. I just want to check whether that happened or not. Second, on a lot of these jobs and skills, like the investment programme, quite a few of these, money's been allocated at the same level for every local authority. As you yourself made reference to, there are different sizes and needs in the local authorities, even though there's a deprivation, but also vastly different sizes. So I just wanted to understand, was that just for speed of delivery or for ease of delivery to give every local authority, or just because it was easier to negotiate to give every local authority the same rather than to vary on a bunch of these? Yeah, I won't ask that final one, it's not particularly important. So yeah, it's just those two.
Okay, so on the BCC point, yes, cabinet approval has been agreed at BCC. When we are dealing with BCC generally with anything across the programme, we are quite careful about making sure that we have all the relevant approvals in place. But often for officers within the City Council, it's quite difficult because those systems and processes are still changing. So we're checking in with them and making sure that they've got the cabinet approval and have they got the next approval. So it is all changed and being handled. I'll pass the second question over to Ed because I wasn't here when that was being decided.
I mean, I think there's always, with any grant funding that comes to the combined authority, debates as to whether things should be allocated on the basis of need or population or a combination of both, or whether it should just be done flat split across the 7. These were political decisions that were taken in December and March, December 22, March 2023, and at that point in time, elected members felt that it should be a flat split. So that was how that took place.
Thank you. I've got a couple of questions around funding. So the grant funding period ends on the 31st of March 2025. Firstly, are we assured that for all of the funds that money will be spent? And if there's any concern that it won't be, is there any flexibility to move money from one fund to another if you've got a higher demand somewhere else? Because it always strikes me as being completely unacceptable if we have to return money to government when we've got such a, an obvious need in other parts. So that's my first question. And the second one is around the total amount is 70 million. Will all of that 70 million reach the grassroots delivery, or is there a proportion of that that is being swallowed up in administrative costs? And if there is, how much is that, please?
So I'll come back on the first one and Ed will take the second one. So in terms of spend and are we convinced everyone is going to spend the money? Yes, we are convinced everyone's going to spend the money. We sort of have to be at this moment in time. But at the same time, we forecast on a monthly basis. We monitor spend. There is a process, but if an underspend is identified, we will sit down with the programme and work out whether it's sort of an underspend that can be used elsewhere within the programme, and if it can't, then there is provision for us to move funding between programmes. What we can't do is move funding between years, or indeed try and extend beyond 31st of March 2025, as that's a final and spending review compliant decision from government. But yeah, we do monitor it really, really, really closely, because I've got no intention of sending any of this money back.
And we ought to say that where there is underspend, the Combined Authority Board made a decision, again, I think it was March 2023, that the underspend should be diverted first and foremost to the grants programme, insofar as there was still time to spend it. So as we get further into next financial year, that window gets narrower. Should there be underspend. At the moment, we're not projecting underspend in any of the programmes. And then secondly, towards Plan for Growth, which was the programme that had the least funding, if you like, through the negotiation that took place before. So that's where underspend will go. As regards administrative costs, they are within each of the programmes that Kat has described. There is a small amount of administrative costs, but they are minimal. And then in terms of the overall programme, which I think was your question, Councillor Baton, as was agreed by the Combined Authority Board last year, there is a 2% administrative charge, which is applied to all funding that comes to the Combined Authority, any grant funding that comes to the Combined Authority, in order to support our enabling services to administer these different programmes. So that applies to, I don't know, you name a grant programme. Of the 80 grant programmes that comes to the Combined Authority, that is a standard application.
Amanda?
Thank you, Chair. Just referring back to the report, because your update is on the basis of a request from the committee to note progress and impact. I've been very conscious, you've given us a lot of progress, but in terms of where we're currently at, I guess it's quite hard to measure impact at this point in time. But again, referring back to the report, it talks about roughly 25 million is allocated towards inclusive communities and wellbeing and sustainability. So I think it is important for the committee to understand what that collective impact looks like. I think I'm conscious in a grants regime where potentially you're allocating very small pots of money that spread quite thinly across the board. It is really important in terms of 25 million for that collective impact, I think, to be reported back here. Thank you.
So we will, of course, be evaluating across the fund, and there are a number of different layers to evaluation. So each of the programmes carries out their own sort of very programme-specific evaluation, and we've also got a body coming in to do completely independent evaluation of the fund against criteria such as value for money and impact in health and wellbeing, impact on physical activity and wellbeing figures, impact against the inclusive growth framework that the Combined Authority has kind of instigated. So that will start in the next couple of months. It may be worth us bringing back a sort of the final evaluation report to European Scrutiny once it's published. I mean, that will be March next year, but if that feels like an appropriate thing to do.
Yeah, that's fine, thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Burrows?
Sure, this is necessary, just applicable to this grants programme, but do we ever seek match funding for our grants? Or do we do only 100% funding?
So in relation to this grants programme, the Commonwealth Games Legacy Fund, it has been quite difficult to get match funding because of the timetable that we are working to. We have to get all the money out the door by March 2025. However, in a couple of cases, I think you might have spotted in Kat's presentation, we have been able to secure additional funding against the culture programmes from the Big Give and also from the British Council as well. So where we have been able to do that, then that's great. And there is also, as Kat mentioned, the possibility of another 3 million for the Inclusive Communities Grants programme, which is coming from DLUP, which you could effectively describe as match funding that we've matched, if you see what I mean, in that sense. Yes, I think we've done our best where we can, but it's not been something that we particularly prioritised with this programme due to the fact that we've got a very narrow timetable. If I look at other funds that the Combined Authority is responsible for, where we have more time, then yes, we absolutely do that. So if I take, for example, the Business Energy Advice Service programme that we're running with businesses at the moment, there is a compulsory matched element to that where businesses have to put in some funding themselves if they're going to draw down the grant for that business energy advice. So we do try to do that where we possibly can, but it all depends on the terms and conditions of each grant programme that we get.
Thank you.
I've just got an additional question, if that's okay, on the global West Midlands and the money allocated to the growth company. I also appreciate their feedback in terms of the overall outcomes that will be part of the evaluation and come to us next year. I've just got a question around kind of some of the aims and objectives are a little bit difficult to quantify in terms of outputs and outcomes. And I just wondered how they would be reported on. So where we talk about enhancing the profile and reputation of the region, improving awareness, consideration of the West Midlands offer across key audiences, how will those kinds of aims and objectives be quantified? I mean, it's pretty obvious if you've got a number of events that are being put on, that's easy. But how is an objective like that going to be quantified, and where will there be interim reporting to on for that?
So it's a very good question, and I'm not here to speak on behalf of the West Midlands Growth Company, just to be clear about that, but I do work very closely with the Growth Company on precisely the issues that you're looking at. The Growth Company provide quarterly monitoring reports which feed into the economic growth report. That's where there is more detailed monitoring on precisely the kind of metrics that you're talking about. There is an ongoing conversation with the Growth Company about particularly their KPIs and the extent to which the KPIs relate to some of the outcomes that are described here. And that is an ongoing process of refinement. And there's a small team in the Growth Company that is continually trying to improve the way in which we report on that kind of activity. It is quite difficult to report directly on that. But the very simple answer to your question is, unless you were to invite the Growth Company here, which of course you could do, then it would be through the Economic Growth Board.
Thank you. Do you have any other questions from anybody else? That's the kettle.
Just a suggestion that possibly a small video could be, you could go out to some of these usage of where this money's being spent and what's being done, and actually film what's going on and bring us an insight as to the quality and the value of what's going on out there. It needn't be a long film, but if you went round, say, 4 or 6 of the local authorities and found something that was viable for us, it'd be a useful insight.
So we're already, in terms of comms, identifying not only when the programmes launch and as part of evaluation, where it is possible to go and kind of film projects, film things taking place, film kind of outcomes outputs in that way. We're hoping to have sort of a year of the left very short film put together more as a kind of a piece of kind of comms and engagement. more than anything else for the next month or so. I don't think that will go into the detail and depth that you're looking for, but certainly as part of sort of the evaluation process, some of that is also, you know, how can we create resources that are usable, not just a very potentially very lengthy report, but you know, have we got output in terms of film or shareable stories, shareable narratives, that kind of thing. So yeah, that's definitely part of thinking around the consultation with them.
Thank you.
Do I have any other points or questions from anybody? Anybody on screen? No? Okay, thank you. So the Scrutiny Committee is recommended to note and update the progress and identify areas of specific interest to form the part of the work programme for 24-25, which I think we've pulled out some suggestions for that, which Lindsay will have made note of, and you will see included in next year's work programme. So thank you everybody for that, and thank you Kat and Ed for the presentation. It's useful to see, and I think it puts it in context when you're looking at it as a regional plan, rather than just being very focused on your own authority. So thank you both for that.
Thank you.
So if we move then on to the grant register. Over to Kate.
Not a particularly fascinating grant register report, I think, for you this month. So just the one grant that has come in. So we have had confirmation of what was formerly called the adult education budget in there for the 24-25 academic year, so 133.7 million for that, and also 9.4 for the level 3 courses for jobs in there. So that is our part of our devolved kind of funding commitment that we get annually. So good news, I think it's actually £1.5 million increase on what we've had last financial year in there. So that is the only update.
Any questions from anybody? Well, usually I have a few questions for you. It'll make you to feel that your time is wasted in fact. Page 24, the 9.4 million from DFE. Do we know at this stage how that is going to be shared amongst the authorities, please?
Not at this stage. I believe there is a page on skills funding coming to the board in March in there. So I don't think that we're quite at that stage. We do have to do that, and we do have to publish those numbers, but the team will be working in line with the usual timetable for it, but we've only just had the money at the moment.
Okay, and page 27, the One Public Estate Opportunity Development Fund. Now we're going to have a report on that in the next municipal year. So I suppose it's just really to flag up at this stage when we want some, the committee would want some detail attached to the financial detail attached to that report, please. The local nature recovery strategy, it says there's no restriction on funding being carried over, which is fine, but the grant is not ring fenced. So if it's not ring fenced, can it be used for other purposes?
In theory, yes. We don't tend to do that. I'll be honest, probably quite a lot of the grants come slightly on ring fence. It usually means it's under a section 31, which in there, but it will still have a purpose for it. So we don't tend to take money from nature, for example, and put it into transport. We don't do that.
Thank you. And final question, the biodiversity net gain money, not a massive amount of money. Is that for work that the combined authority might be doing around brownfield developments rather than it being devolved to local authorities?
Yeah, so that is it's an amount of money we get every year. We don't actually ask for it, but it just sort of comes in from DEFRA. Yeah, we get quite a slightly strange email from it, but it's effectively we use it to pay for a post in the combined authority that then works on doing work around there. I will not confess to know effectively around biodiversity. I believe it's more around kind of the work in Ed's area on the environment side. So it goes into Ed's kind of Jackie Hayman's area rather than necessarily the housing sort of side of it. So I think it is more around environment for animals and habitat than the biology side.
Okay, because it was biodiversity net gain, I assumed that it was linked to the new legislation. So it would have sat within the brownfield, the land development, but okay.
Yeah, no, it's in with the environment side. More frogs, I think, and then grips.
Right, okay, any questions from anybody else on that? Councillor Bateman?
I just think it's on a pretty important issue, really, in one sense. In that, you know, we're very urban in from Wolverhampton. We've got boundaries and the like. If there is a post and a position that's there that's doing some work, really good to have an expansion of that coming from your question, if nothing else, and a little bit more of an understanding why DEFRA's giving this dosh away in the way that they do. It just makes a bit of sense, having kind of pushed the marshmallow and found it a little bit soft, but we understand there's going to be hard reasons. I'd like to see some of the hard reasons behind it.
Perhaps we could ask Jackie or Ed to just do a briefing note that can come out to members, if that would be helpful. Yeah. Okay, then that takes us on to the work programme, which is the work programme for 2024-25. As you can see, there's been a number, well, we've talked about a number of things that we're going to add into that this morning. Also added into it is going to be investment zones, and there'll be some more detailed reports coming on investment zones next year. I was already looking at a pretty packed agenda for people, so I'd better add too much more in. But any comments? Anybody got any comments on that? No. Wayne?
Oh, Chair, not on the work program, but as this is our last meeting, I would like to thank you for carrying this meeting very efficiently, and also thanks the officer for their support during the school year.
Thank you. Yes, it is the final meeting, and who knows where any of us will be for now. However, one would hope that where there aren't elections or where people retain their seats, the leaders of the relevant authorities do take into account the recommendations from the scrutiny protocol and make some consistent nominations back to this committee next year. Anything on the forward plan, the combined authorities forward plan? Any comments on that? No? Okay, well, that's the end of the last meeting of this year then. And thank you everybody for your attendance throughout the year and your inputs. Thank you.